Namaste everyone and welcome back to another episode of Stories You Should Know by Misty. Before introducing my guest, I would like to share a very exciting news with you all. My podcast now has its official Instagram page, so go to Instagram, click that follow button now at Stories You Should Know. Also tell your friends about it and help in spreading the word. Now, this week's guest on Stories You Should Know is a writer, a comedy producer, and a stand-up comedian herself. She started her journey in Mumbai by being a fellow at Teach for India and went on to producing comedy shows under the banner The Grin Revolution. It's time for you to meet Shreemayee Das. Hi Shreemayee, how are you? How's your day going?
Hi. Thank you for having me. All good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for coming to the show and taking out some time during this quarantine.
No problem.
How's everything looking for you?
It's okay managing in lockdown somehow.
There's this one thing that I ask everyone to do is to introduce themselves because I think that's the best way for everyone to know the guest. So how
Sure.
would it be that you would introduce yourself?
Um, I'm a stand-up comedian, and I more than performing stand-up comedy, I actually organize a lot of stand-up comedy shows. So I'm really into that. And I also write, and I'm a freelance writer, so I work with a couple of places, and I get my articles published over there, and I mostly write on Bollywood and books.
So were you always interested in stand-up comedy?
No, not at all. I came to Bombay about 5 years ago, and like before that, I think in 2015, I went for my first stand-up comedy show, and before that, like I had never seen a YouTube video or anything live. I had heard of the group AIB, All India Book Show, obviously, but that was also because I used to follow Ashish Akya's column in Hindustan Times. So he used to write an HT column every week, and I was a big fan of that column, and that was my vague idea of stand-up comedians, and I always like it was a big deal when I first met Ashish Akya because I was such a big fan of yours because of your writing, and I never cared about the comedy part of it at all. When I came to Bombay, I was working with an NGO called Teach for India. So I used to actually teach kids, underprivileged kids in Goregaon near a slum. So that's why I came to Bombay, and I stayed on and did a bunch of things, none of which I had planned to do earlier.
So how did these things progress for you? I mean, from Teach for India, you ventured into a line of comedy. Now you are organizing shows.
So when I was in Teach for India, I think around my second year of Teach for India, I started watching a lot of comedy shows, and I really enjoyed watching comedy. And I was one of those crazy fans who was always at shows, and just I knew all the comedian sets by heart and things like that. And I actually started performing comedy in 2017, I think. And it was just like everyone had told me that you should perform comedy, and I was just like, I have stage fright and I can't do it. But ultimately, I just did it one day. I think I was just tired of watching so many shows, and I was like, maybe I should only do it. So I did it, and it was fun. And then I did that for a couple of months. I think for about 6-7 months, I did it. I performed properly. And then I was just like, I know what I really want to do, and that was to organize comedy shows. I have wanted to curate comedy shows for a while. I had wanted to curate comedy shows for a while, even before I started performing. And I just knew that that's what worked for me. And when I started doing it, I realized that that's actually what I love a lot more than performing. So I ended up doing that, and with Grin Revolution, we started out with like one room, and it was a 20-seater, and we were very happy with it. We thought this is all that we would do, but thankfully we got a great reception, and it sort of expanded, and we started doing more venues and a lot more shows every week, and it was really fun.
So, venturing into this sector, this area, complete new thing because you were a fellow at Teach for India. Was this a little scary in the beginning when you were taking a chance of, arranging these comedy shows and doing stand-up comedy by yourself?
So actually, I was really lucky because, as I said, I had attended a lot of comedy shows, so I had a lot of friends who were also doing comedy, and like these were just people I had met at shows. Like I became friends with comedians, and then I started dating a comedian. So that also helped because I met his friends as well, and suddenly, like I knew a lot of people. So by the time I did my first open mic, I knew almost everyone on the lineup. So that was very comfortable, and a few of my other comedian friends had come out to watch me perform, and that was really sweet as well. So it wasn't so nerve wracking really because I knew most of the people. And even when I started organizing shows, I didn't do it alone. I did it with my boyfriend, Rohan, and we started Grin Revolution together. So I always had someone who I could, bounce ideas off and talk to and figure things out with.
The line that you chose, the field, the career wise, what you chose is not someone, not everybody can do it, or not everybody has the courage to, pursue this line. So, how is the response from your friends, your family specifically?
Okay, so first of all, I just want to clarify that this is not like Grin Revolution is not my full-time job. As I said, that I also do, freelance writing on the side. I do a bunch of other
Right.
freelance projects which are not comedy oriented always. I also work in video production and things like that. So I do a bunch of other things, but as far as comedy was concerned, yeah, my parents weren't very happy with it in the beginning. Like I never told them because they don't live in Bombay, so they would have not found out. So I think for like about 4 or 5 months they didn't know, and then somehow they found out, and they weren't very happy with it. They didn't know what I was doing or how it worked, or whether I would ever earn money from it. But I mean, slowly they sort of accepting it, and once Grin Revolution became a little popular, I think it really helped because we did a lot of shows, and we were sort of uh, covered by a few comedy journals, and like our names came up in some comedy articles and things like that. And so it made my parents feel like, okay, there is some recognition. Like if they googled me, they could see that Grin Revolution was doing some work. So I think that made them feel better.
Right. And with all of your other jobs, like your writing jobs and your production jobs, how is it that you manage these things all together and yet try to uh, give all the time to your other subjects? Maybe when you're writing, maybe when you're into production, you might be have to take out time for your comedy section. When you're doing the comedy, you have to take time for the other section. How
I
do you
mean,
manage
it's
that?
it's not so compartmentalized. Like most days, I'm working. I mean, before the lockdown, obviously, because now we're not doing shows. But before the lockdown, there would be most days where I would be doing like all of those things together. Like I would be in one meeting, and then I would go to another meeting of a completely like different job, completely. So it was. I like to believe I'm good at time management and I can do it. And comedy shows mostly happen in the evenings, so I'm very clear about the fact that whatever work, like whenever I sign up for a project or something, I'm very clear in the beginning that I will most probably have to leave by 7 o'clock in the evening because I have a show to organize and a show to, produce and make sure everything goes right. And I'm very clear upfront, and mostly everyone's been very accommodating about it, and I've managed to do it really well.
Do you think that over the years, your dreams or maybe your ambitions has changed?
Um, I don't know because when I was growing up, I never considered myself an ambitious person at all. And like I was never the kind of person who had a lot of goals and like things to achieve. So I'm not sure what my ambitions were and if they have changed or not. But I do know that uh, in about 2016, when my Teach for India fellowship was getting over, and someone asked me, I was very unclear what I wanted to do next because, as I said, I'm not ambitious and I don't have clear plans and things like that. So someone asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, if I really could do something, I want to curate like a comedy section of a festival. And I managed to do that this year because we curated the Kala Ghora Arts Festival. So, I mean, and I said it with no hopes of ever being able to achieve it. It was very like I'm saying it. It's like some absurd dream that you have that one day I'll make I don't know, a movie or something, and you know that realistically it's not going to happen. So that's how I said it, but somehow it happened, and that was very strange for me because I'm not the type of person who would write down that this is my goal and this is what I want to achieve, and I have to achieve this by the time I'm whatever 25 or 30 or whatever. So for me, because I'm not very ambitious, I don't see like goals changing and all.
So, do you think that maybe the fears that you had initially, when you were growing up, when you wanted to, when you were trying to figure out what you want to do in life, um, are those fears still there even after reaching at this point, after whatever you are doing now, whatever you have achieved?
I don't know. I mean, I think my fears were more in the sense that like I was scared of failure, I guess, in a way. And like I was always scared of not being good enough. But I think I mean, there are good days where I'm just like, yeah, I've achieved something, and I don't know if I set out to achieve this, but I have achieved something. But then there are also days where, of course, you feel like what you're doing is not enough, and what you're doing will never be enough. And I think that happens to everybody. So I would not say that my fears have gone away completely. And if you're saying that are you still scared of failing, or like if you're scared that suddenly things will go wrong, and yeah, of course, I'm always scared.
I think we all are at, I think I get scared almost every day of what's going to happen
Yeah,
tomorrow or how am I going to deal with certain things, certain issue in life. What I want to know is, after now you are at a position or at a place that where you can say, okay, I'm doing this in life, and this is the kind of schedule I follow. Do you think that the perception of the people around you has changed over the years, the way they look at you, the way they talk to you, over the past few years, maybe after, like you said, when someone Googles your name, it does come
yeah.
up, and now you are doing a far better job than maybe you were doing a couple of years back. So, do you think the perception of the people around you has changed?
I don't know. I mean, I hope they know that I'm more capable and confident, but I really can't tell. Yeah, I can't tell if their perception of me has changed. I mean, most of my friends are either people who I have known since my school days, and so they've seen me grow up, and whatever I do, they'll still be my friends. Or I have a group of friends who I made after, joining the comedy industry, so to say. And I guess those people look at me differently than my school friends do, but I don't know how much of that is a result of what I'm doing and my job, and how much of that is just the fact that like these school friends have just known me forever. So they've obviously seen me go through everything pretty much.
And how difficult is it for a female artist to, make a name in the comedy industry?
Okay, so I
What
mean,
do you
first of
think
all,
about
as
it?
I said, I'm more of an organizer than a performer. So,
Yes, I mean, as a performer and organizer also, if you talk about it, it's you are there, you are making those
yeah.
shows happen, right? I don't know, like from a female perspective, how difficult is it? Or maybe it was easier in your case, as you said, you had those kind of contacts, but still there might be some kind of struggle.
I think as far as organizing goes, and at the scale that we organize it, that we organize, which is more smaller shows and open mics, and not really like auditorium shows and like 1,000 people coming and watching and all. It's always difficult because we don't always have like famous artists coming in and performing, and things like that. But as far as how difficult it is for women in the comedy scene, it's obviously more difficult for women than for men. But I mean, that's true of all sectors, really. It's not like
Right.
every job I've had, I have felt that, and it's got nothing to do with the comedy industry. So that's true. But I also like I've worked with some amazing women and in comedy, and I've had great shows, and we do ladies open mics pretty regularly at Grin Revolution, and those shows are incredible. They're some of my
Right.
favorite shows to produce and to watch, because the energy is just so amazing, and everyone's out there and supportive, and the audience that usually comes is really warm, and yeah, and some of my favorite comedians are women, but I would like if I make a top five or something, I never think of gender when I'm making that top five, but it's very easy for me to say that also. Basically, I think what I want to say is that yeah, it is difficult for women, but it is difficult for women in all sectors, so it's not special for comedy.
Talking about comedy shows and since you produce them, tell me what kind of madness goes behind into making these shows happen? Because you're a producer, you work at the base level. For someone like me, I'll buy a ticket, I'll go, I'll
Right,
watch a show, and I'll come back.
right.
What exactly goes behind it?
So every time someone asks me that, I always say what goes behind it is a lot of panic and a lot of fights, and somehow it's all just it just when the show starts, we try to behave like we are calm. But as I said, because we are,
Right,
we operate on a small scale, we also have the problem that we don't really, when we get artists, we're always unsure whether they, if they get a better show or a bigger show, then they obviously back out of our shows. And that's completely understandable. That's how the open mic sector works. We all know that if an artist gets a better paying gig, they will get that because our gigs they don't even pay, forget about paying enough. We just pay a token amount. So it's not
right.
possible. So we are always worried that oh, an artist might back out, or will we have enough artists to do a good show? And what if sometimes audience members come late, and we're just like, okay, can we start the show on time? If we don't start the show on time, when will we end? And will we make enough money to pay everyone and then still earn some for ourselves? So all of that is there, and there's so many things that can go wrong. Like I don't know, the mic can stop working, which is a problem we keep facing, and it's just random things can happen. So we're always like uh, panicking before a show. And I think there's like 15 minutes before the show starts when we finished setup and we're just waiting for audience to come. And a lot of times, like five, six people will come, but the rest of the audience is running late because of traffic or whatever reason. And I hate that part because that 10 minutes is when I panic the most. And I just imagine all the worst case scenarios where we sold 40 tickets, but like five people have come, and the comics are like, why are we doing this for five people? And then they hate us, and the audience hates us, and yeah, I'm always panicking.
I think I have seen panic on your face in couple of your shows
Yeah,
when people were in a little late and you were just looking at them like this is not the time to be
yeah,
here.
I'm always
It's kind
panicking before a show, but yeah, I really love it also.
I think it's a different kind of
Yeah,
thrill. It's a very different to attend a show. Like I'm telling from my perspective, when I attend a show, it's a very different thing. For me, it's like, oh, okay, there's a show. I have to go. I have to sit. I have to watch. I have to come back.
yeah,
As a audience, I don't know what goes behind it. But from your perspective, it's total madness. It's complete utter madness
yeah,
right
yeah,
before
it
the
is.
show
And like
starts.
sometimes, forget about the audience, sometimes the comics are also running late, or a lot of times comics do multiple shows in one night. So like they'll be doing a show in let's say Lower Parel, and then they have to come to Bandra. And I'm constantly messaging them and like asking them to send me like a live location and checking their location every second, just wondering when they'll reach and if they'll get caught up in traffic. And yeah, and then also just trying to make sure that everything goes smoothly.
Since we have spoken about your journey and where you are now, and you mentioned that you're not a very ambitious person, but still you must be having some, let's say, a 5 year plan, or you must be thinking that okay, in next 5 to 10 years, this is where I want, what I want to do. Do you have those plans? Like we all have some plans set
Never.
for
First
us.
of all, I have never had any kind of like a 5 year plan. And I think now I like to use the fact that I think what the pandemic and the lockdown quarantine has shown us also is that it is in a certain sense quite useless to plan long term because we really don't know what's going to happen. Like I had plans in April that I would go for a holiday and like go home and a bunch of other things that we were going to do. And none of that has happened. And this is like at a very small scale for us, nothing has happened. But like overall, also in the world, so many things were planned and nothing is happening. So for me to plan that 5 years later I'll be at this place just doesn't make sense only to me. I just want to have like enough savings to ride through an emergency, and yeah, that's it. I'll just see what happens.
Towards the end, like this is one of my last things I want to ask you. If you have to, give one advice to yourself, maybe like a younger version of you, what would that be if you look back and you think that, okay, this is what I should have done, or maybe this is something different I should have done?
Um, there were many things, but I think I should have been more confident and less hard on myself, because I'm pretty harsh on myself. I'm never very satisfied with what I do, and and not in a healthy way. So I think if I could tell younger me one thing, I would just be like, it's okay to mess up sometimes.
That was Shreemayee Das, and this was her story. You can follow her page, The Grin Revolution, on Instagram, and be assured to get some kick-ass comedy updates. Now it's time for me to read a very special message I received last week from a very dear friend, Ashima. She says, Tarushi, I have been listening to your podcasts and you are doing amazing work. I hope you keep spreading more awareness and bring issues people don't want to talk about. It's time we get it out and open. It's time we bring some sense and humanity to the deteriorating mindsets. Ashima, I really hope I'm able to do so. The whole idea behind this podcast is to bring forward stories that deserve to be heard. For everyone who has been listening, thank you so much for your love and support and for being there on this journey with me since the start. I would love to hear from you all, so please feel free to drop a comment if wherever you are listening allows you to. You can also reach out to me on my Twitter or Instagram ID at TangyMisty or at Stories You Should Know's Instagram page. You can also connect with me over an email at tcisha@gmail.com. I will be back next week with another story. Till then, stay safe, take care of yourself and your loved ones. Help someone in need if you can, and be kind. This is Misty signing off.